Already, here, I can draw a comparison in terms of camera shots. Here, in comparison to, let's say, this shot, is much clearer. This is done to show a severe difference between the two worlds. Initially, it would have been thought that the game world should have a grainy texture, being somewhat pixelated in comparison, yet that's the whole point. She prefers this world, hence her smiling, preferring the overall aspect that this simulation is an escape from the real world, so we as an audience can really now focus and be drawn in with the better quality, as well as the upbeat music. Also, the previous shots were more the sci-fi element, and now this is the action, which, since there is more movement and activity, the in-focus shots really add the edge needed for the viewer adrenaline. Now another comparison shot. This one here is at a slightly high angle, just slightly, and when put next to this one, really draws attention to a powerful and almost scary enemy. An over-the-shoulder shot showing another zombie behind her. We know it is there before she does, with this shot, leaving the viewers second-guessing as to whether or not she'll notice it before she's attacked. Now backtracking here for a moment, we can tell that this is not an ordinary person to begin with, since our protagonist has pulled out a gun on her straight away, which she has now suddenly acquired since she is now in a simulation. Also, to imply that this individual was a zombie is due to her clothing, torn and blooded, as well as the blood and dark patches on her face. This is done with all the zombies, in some way making them all generic. Their movements to begin with are quite jagged and almost unnatural, contrasting to the fluid movements of the main character, who we assume is not a zombie like them. As the music now hits the chorus, I didn't want there to be too much action, so instead had her running down the corridor to her next destination. This mise-en-scene now shows that she is in a school environment where there seems to be no living individual around. And now if you notice, the shot is somewhat shaky. This is done to give a more realistic approach and personal viewpoint into the fact that she is moving. If it was still and on a tripod, I feel it may lose some of the free feel to her exploration. Reaching the staircase now, which I've made fade to white. This suggests, as in a game there would be a checkpoint, which she has just reached. And now an interesting view of her running down the stairs, because it would seem more of a boring if there were to have been another shot of her just running. This also implies, like during a checkpoint in a game, that there is a cutscene where the playable character has now become AI, so artificial intelligence, for a brief moment, again highlighting that this is not the real world. It also draws more attention to what she is wearing, just reminding us she is female due to the dress and also her shoes, which we don't actually get to see earlier on. Now, usually if someone has run into an environment where there are members of their living dead present, they're about to run at you and tear it to pieces, the individual will be horrified, even scream, turn tail, and run the opposite way. But this is targeted for teenagers, a group who generally crave rushes of adrenaline and living life on the edge, supposedly. But moreover, really defining her satisfaction and more of a challenge by smiling, which again is something someone would not actually do. Furthering the idea that the level of these creatures has gone up, not only because their numbers have increased, but their running style is less jagged and more fluent. And with this shot, following the death of the zombie, shows the brutal reality that she is killing them, and also how the shot only shows her gun in her hands, focusing mainly on the death actions of the zombies and not focusing on her. I mean, we've seen her kill 2 zombies previously. And the scene fades to black as she steps over the dying zombies onto her next destination. Just to comment on something said in the first video, the titles are now in black as opposed to white. This was so they stood out a little more. So white on a dark background and now black on a lighter background. I also added a couple of techniques where the protagonist runs past the titles and wipes them off screen as such, which can be viewed as the passing of this scene has little importance, so she has ignored and overlooked anything that was there. A few more things that I edited for timing was this. The singer says, blow just as the zombie is shot, which focuses on what is happening on the scene here. Also, she holds the zombie at gunpoint. The singer says, "Put your hands up," also as a surrender, suggesting there is no use in fighting since she will lose, which is proven by this. Also, why I added to again show that this is a game world is a spawn, which is where an enemy, for example, is placed by the functions of a game at a certain point. This is where I used it, which, as I said, adds focus that this is a game world. Initially I was to put in some special effects shots, but decided against them, as it would have slowed down the process of these shots, which I really wanted just to flow nice and quickly to really focus on the action side of things, and to keep a fast pace to coincide with the chosen music, which again I ended up changing to Party Poison, because my initial soundtrack of Plug-in Baby by Muse, whilst ironic in words, was too slow.